Sebastian, we hear a lot of people talking about artificial intelligence in a very theoretical sense or a very philosophical sense. But on a practical standpoint, the conversation is completely different. What do you think the opportunities that are in the short term for governments to look at when looking at governing AI and investing in it? And what do you think the challenges are for both governments and the private sector on this front?
It's great to be invited, and it's wonderful to see this massive interest in Dubai. In fact, I feel honored to be talking to the very first world's minister on artificial intelligence today. AI is a technology that's going to be as revolutionary as the steam engine was and modern industrialization was in the past. And what it does to us is it turns into superhumans. It'll take our brains and put them on steroids. Concretely speaking, the very first big change I'll see is that almost anything we do in a repetitive manner can be done by the machines using AI. I'll give you an example. I worked on self-driving cars. We have AI watching over the shoulders of drivers, and after a few months, your AI driver surpasses the ability to drive a car relative to a human driver. I worked on medicine, where we have AI looking over the shoulders of dermatologists, trying to find what is a skin cancer, but it's not. After about a month of watching, we can surpass the best human doctors in detection of these lethal diseases. I worked on AI in sales, where we have a team looking in sales chat, and after a month of looking, our AI-based sales agents make our human sales agents 3 to 4 times as effective in converting customers. These are just examples. The reason why that's important is because almost everybody who does office work does repetitive work. Lawyers, accountants, politicians, judges, doctors, medical doctors, all of those will find solutions where they can be using AI to become 100 to 1,000 times as effective as today.
So you think AI will empower all these individuals? It will make us better as humans rather than displace us and cause the catastrophic scenarios that people are talking about?
We've always gone through phases where we build technology that turns into superhumans, right? So let's say 300 years ago in Europe, where I'm from, one person was able to farm for maybe 4 people because farming was a lot of physical work. And then we came up with the machines that empower us today, a farmer to make food for something like 200 people in the developed world. And as a result, we don't need as many farmers, right? So you can raise the question, do we need as many lawyers as we have today? I guess the answer is no. Do we need as many doctors as we have today? The answer is no. But the nice thing about this is as we use machines to make us superhuman, that we can find new jobs. Like almost all jobs today, from TV anchor to, software engineer to graphic designer, are jobs that didn't exist 300 years ago because we didn't have that ability. So now we have this new human brain, this amazing brain called AI that can learn things for us and store things for us and share things for us in ways that are completely unprecedented, that turns us into superhumans. So what I see is we're going to free humanity of the slavery of repetitive work. We're going to replace this with highly creative work. I think we've, honestly, as a humanity, almost everything interesting that we know today, like from running water toilets to electricity to penicillin to cars and airplanes, all this has been invented in the last 150 years, right? And the Earth is much older than 150 years. If we look at this in the speed of invention, now that we are free to read and free to write and free to have some freedom to think about things, that speed will only go up. I honestly believe only 1% of interesting things has been invented yet, and 99% will be invented in the future. And if you think about this, then what an amazing time to live, what an amazing time to be part of, to see all of a sudden humanity goes on steroids when it comes to creativity.
So we should all take it that you're an optimist on the future, and you believe that the future is very beneficial and is very bright for all of us.
I think history has proven over and over again that technology finds its way to make the world a better place. We now live in a world where education is almost universal, almost free to access. We live in a world where poverty is on decline. We live in a world where people in the developed world live twice as long as even our grandparents' generation. All these things are moving ahead. And I think in the end of the day, I don't think it's going to stop.
And if you were, let's say, a parent today, how would you ride this wave? What would you do to your child or to yourself? And let's say if you were a government official today, what would you do as well? What would be the direct next step that everyone in this room that would be affected by this technology or would be affected by this progress should do as soon as they leave this door?
I think it's important to get a sound and deep understanding what AI really means and not just stay at a superficial level. And that is something different for every different person, to be honest. I mean, as an engineer myself, for me, sound understanding means I'll learn how to code machine learning-based systems, how to use them. It turned to be easier to code than conventional computers. In history of computing, when you code something, you have to kind of compile all the rules in your head and put them into the machine. But with machine learning, you can just give examples and train by examples. So I think if someone has free time, go and try it out. It's the best thing to do. But even on the more abstract level, as a parent, for example, I would make sure that my kids get in contact with it and do coding and learn how to code. And I'd like to understand what it really means for me as a job, what opportunities exist in my own work to take these systems and make my own life better. As a policymaker, I mean, I'm in awe with Dubai and with the fact that we have a minister of artificial intelligence next to me. That's like a dream come true. I think it's too premature to regulate, and I wouldn't even know what to regulate today. It's much more important to kind of transform society from a stationary society that assumes the world is fixed to a dynamic society where things move on. None of us can predict the future, but one thing is clear. 10 years from now, the world will look very, very different. And you need a people, you need an education base, you need a mindset, you need a growth mindset among your people that these things are changing, and you can ride these waves with us and make the world a better place.
So we were discussing right before the panel that, and I said that artificial intelligence is just as important as knowing a language. So if you want to learn, you need to know the English language if you want to learn English context. And I think it's going to be as pervasive as that. If you have an understanding, you'll be able to lead that future. We've heard a lot of people talk about the future of artificial intelligence from the 50s or the 40s. Many people predicted that robots would be driving our cars, but today our cars are driving themselves. What is a prediction that you would like to make about artificial intelligence that no one else is seeing, both positive and negative, something that we do not hear in the news enough, or something that is not discussed openly?
One of the things, I'm going to give you two examples. One of the things I'm really excited about is disease. I just recently lost my sister, actually last year, due to cancer. She was 51 years old, and when she finally spotted that she actually was suffering from cancer, it was way too late to take an intervention. I believe cancer is the second largest killer in the United States. And the reason why it's so dangerous is not because it's hard to heal, it's because it's hard to detect. It's usually non-symptomatic. And when finally your pancreatic cancer turns your face yellow because you destroyed your liver, it's too late. So I believe we can make this kind of pervasive environment where every time you touch a steering wheel, you get an EKG. Every time you look in the vent mirror, you get a retinal exam. Every time you sleep, your pressure mat under your mattress understands whether you're close to a congestive heart failure. And every time you take a shower, you get a full skin exam. I think that we will build these AI systems to make diagnostics pervasive. And as a result, we'll heal many, many, many lethal diseases. I think at some point we'll be able to take the human brain and upload it into a machine. The form it might take is unclear to me, whether we slice our brains open shortly after we die or whether we just observe people acting. But I can tell you, people close to me are able to predict almost everything I say. When people like Doreen watch me long enough, they realize, oh, Sebastian says the same thing over and over and over again. So I'm actually not that complicated to turn into a machine. And maybe it's not 100% of me, maybe it's 98%. But all the work I do day in, day out, the way I behave, is actually very, very straightforward. And if you combine the data of myself with all your data, many of you are similar. I mean, you might be smarter than me and better looking, but at some point we're doing similar things all the time. When that happens, we might enter immortality in a very different way than being accepted. Instead of us physically being immortal, maybe it's our brain recording that's immortal. And it'd be very interesting to see that we don't have to die anymore, but we can actually live on forever.
And do you think we will have a choice, or it will happen because it's the right thing to happen?
Look, at some level we always have a choice, and some level we don't. As a government, I think if you said today, let's ban AI, that's a bad idea. In fact, there was a recent instance where the Google self-driving car, which I used to run, was debated in the state of Arizona. And the Arizona regulator said this is way too dangerous. And then the Arizona governor, who is in charge, fired his regulators and said, no, the opposite. Let's invite them in because future technology is unstoppable. So technology is unstoppable. Absolutely, yes. We will find new ways. Almost like having water in your hand and trying to hold it for 2 years. It's not going to work. It's going to seep out somewhere. At the same time, we have to responsibly think about it, and we have to responsibly make decisions. So given that technology moves ahead, I think as a government, as a society, we have to understand what is the best way to bring it to the benefit of all people. And every technology bears risks. Every technology bears the risk of abuse, of malfunction. So we have to understand what type of framework to put in place to minimize the risk to people.
And how do you govern something that would advance regardless and you can't really touch, as you said?
I think the number one and number two, number three solution is education. Go and educate your people. I'm come here to Dubai in part to announce a new initiative we do together on teaching 1 million people in the Arab world how to code, which I love. But that's just the beginning. I think the most important way to deal with any innovation is to have every single person participate and give every single person a seat on the table. And the number one ingredient to that is education.
And how do you think that, or how do you see AI transforming education? What do you think it will do to the education system itself, whether it's through the way that education is delivered or the results that it yields?
Well, first of all, in an era with modern technology, and AI being one example, Google and Amazon, there's many things we don't have to learn anymore, right? Like as much as we don't have to hunt anymore with a spear because that's been solved using industry, we don't have to learn spelling anymore, in my opinion. We don't really have to learn multiplication anymore because it's kind of a given, if you're honest to ourselves, even though most teachers will probably disagree. But the same next thing is happening is, it's happening at my company, Udacity, quite a bit, is we use AI to tailor education to the right person. So in the past, we would all get the kids into the right classroom and it's Tuesday morning and all the kids have to learn exactly the same thing at the same time. In the future, education will be tailored towards every single person. Education should actually be fun. Most people think of education as something they don't enjoy. And we look back at our high school education, we think about we went to school because we want to see our friends, but we didn't really like the learning part of it. But humans are wired to learn. Humans are sponges for new information. I think we can make education so much fun that we'd rather be educated than, for example, playing a video game.
And you just said in the future. How long in the future would that be? When will we have tailored education? In your point?
Well, it's happening today. If you look at innovation at Udacity and at Coursera and other companies, if you look at K-12 education at places like Khan Lab School and other places, we now more and more leverage technology to make learning an individualized experience. And what helps us in this is the increasing shortage of highly skilled teachers. When you look at the distribution of highly skilled education institutions in the world, there's only 17 countries in the world that can say that they host the top 100 university. I see an enormous shortage of great educators in the Arab world, to be honest, to be quite frank. And I'd love to change this. And that's where new technologies like mobile and iPads and of course, artificial intelligence can make all the difference.
So how would artificial intelligence solve issues like unemployment? Now, we know a lot of people say that artificial intelligence will cause unemployment. But how do you see it solving unemployment?
I think when we free ourselves of repetitive work, when we don't have to do the same thing over and over again, we will end up being more creative and trying more things. Like in the United States, for example, every school teacher teaches 30 kids at the same time. And we all know if we can reduce that ratio to 1 teacher to 5 kids, we have much better outcomes. There's a huge shortage of teachers. Or one that my friend Jeff Bezos told me, and I just want to recite here, is in the medical environment. So when we go to the doctor, there's something called a wait room, and the customer waits for the service provider. That's just so fundamentally wrong. It should be the opposite way. Like the service provider who provides us a service, aka the doctor, should wait for us to show up. So there's certainly open jobs there. And if you look around, anything related to social services, human services, from nursing and so on, there's a huge number of potential jobs today. The current statistics show that we are living at probably the best time ever in terms of mass unemployment. Even though we've massively leveraged AI already into existing systems. I just don't believe that AI is going to drive our unemployment.
And which sector do you see would get most impacted by this technology in terms of returns, in terms of revolutionizing it in a positive way?
Well, so right now, obviously, transportation is changing. It's been estimated that 1 in 9 jobs in the United States will massively change when self-driving cars are being deployed at scale. I briefly talked about medicine, where I really believe that we can enter an age of pervasive medical diagnostics, so we can catch all diseases early. And then we can go further. Maybe we find a solution to living twice as long. There's a lot of AI being leveraged in, as I mentioned before, in repetitive jobs like lawyers and so on. So all these fields, I think, will change over time. And I'm looking forward to those. I think if we take a person and force them to do the same boring, repetitive job in fields like accounting for all their life, then I think we're not doing a fair job to this person's creative potential.
And do you think the deployment of AI depends on countries having resources and being rich or having a relatively new infrastructure, or is it not that in terms of the advantage of deploying AI and the ability to do so?
Well, I'd say historically, the good development of new technologies, of which AI is no exception, requires the confluence of a number of things. One, of course, is the open-mindedness of the leadership. And it's so great to be here and witness it firsthand. It requires the education of people. People understand those tools and have ways to educate themselves. Also, kind of requires a bit of an entrepreneurship. One of the reasons why I moved from Germany to the United States is because in Silicon Valley, there's this rigorous mindset to just try things, and there's financing environment, and there's people available. They all kind of drink the same Kool-Aid, so to speak, in trying to change the world. So when these things come together, all of a sudden you find these amazing cells of innovation. And I would love to see this exported to every place on Earth, to be honest. I think this is something that we should all do and all be engaged in.
I want to ask a question that I think would be relevant to yourself and Jürgen, for example. But what do you think are the limitations of AI? We see a lot of people talking about the potential. Do you think we'll hit a ceiling when it comes to AI? And when do you think we will?
That is subject of very active debate. And I know some people in the audience might see this differently, like Jürgen Schmidhuber. But I distinguish specialized AI from general AI. And I would say the progress that we've witnessed in the last decade is almost exclusively on specialized AI, on machines that do one thing incredibly well, but nothing else. So for example, the Google self-driving car cannot fly an airplane. And to fly an airplane would require a massive redevelopment of the basic AI. So I think we live in a world where the progress, the immediate progress will come from highly repetitive things that are very, very structured and repeat themselves. I think the path to something like a general AI is a very long path, in my opinion. I'm not as optimistic as some other people are, in part because I don't even think that a general AI would be a great product, to be honest. I don't want something at home that has an opinion and has moods and so on, all these other flaws that I have. So I think the immediate future will be highly repetitive type tasks.
We heard the previous panel talk about jobs that will not be taken over by AI. But there's an opinion that an AI can become a YouTube blogger. Like it can actually learn how to write comments on YouTube, or it can do certain jobs as good as a human being. What job do you think will not be taken over by AI, even from a philosophical standpoint? What job do you think will remain human?
I think what makes us unique is our creativity. It's the Albert Einsteins in the world, and the Larry Pages and the Jeff Bezoses, who come up with complete new solutions to problems. And I yet have to meet an AI system that comes even close to this. In fact, if I look at the history of humanity, you see this explosion of creativity in the last 150 years, which coincides with the fact that people can read and write all of a sudden and can go to school. As we unleash ourselves and free ourselves of these mundane, repetitive tasks like farming, and free our minds to think differently, I think we have only scratched the surface of what's humanly possible in terms of creativity.
So, if you were a government official today, you hear the issues of general AI and the issues of narrow AI and its limitations and the impacts it's going to have. What would be the first step that you take? So teach me in this. What would you do if you were in my place?
Well, I would listen. I would organize meetings like this, and none of us knows the truth, so it's important to realize this is a really important discussion to be had. I bring the discussion back to the government and to the people. But most importantly, I would start using AI. I would look at problems inside government, inside industry, and see what are constructive, concrete solutions that we can adopt today. For me, I can only understand AI by doing it and by seeing it. I cannot understand it through abstract discussions. So for me, I want to have an impact in the world by leveraging it into today's products. And there are so many open problems that can benefit from AI. If Dubai became and UAE became the hot spot for applying AI into open problems, that would set you so much apart from anybody else, and it would probably keep you busy.
I think it would. It would. I have a final question, and then I'll open the floor to the audience. The advancement of AI today is seen to be mostly due to the GPU being able, or graphic processing unit. What do you think would be the next hardware breakthrough that would make AI leapfrog or expand much beyond what it's currently capable of doing?
So I concur that the use of massive compute centers and massive data has led to this vast advancement in AI. And we see it in games like the game of Go, we see it in self-driving cars. All of these require massive compute centers, which is great. What's the next step? I would say the big next phase shift will be when AI systems start interact with AI systems in a meaningful way. When this Google self-driving car goes to AlphaGo and says, hey, I can help you play Go because I have all this self-driving car experience. And we've seen bits and examples of this. When we did work on skin cancer detection, even though cats and dogs and mice and images don't resemble skin cancer, having this network pre-trained with that information made a huge difference. Just imagine you have an AI system that could read all the books in the world and understand all the books in the world, and then leverage all the book knowledge we've devised into information, and then can take the information from one domain to another. That would be a major breakthrough, and that's completely missing today.